I've just come in from the garden and it's -4 outside, so it's time for me to put the cup of tea on and flick through the pages of my 2 flower arranging magazines. I subscribe to Flora, so that comes through the post, and the Flower Arranger, I subscribe to that through my flower club. Let's flick through the magazines together and see what inspires us. Hello there, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. Right, kettle on, coat off, warm up feet. Let's get going. Let me know in the comments whether you're a subscriber to Flora or the Flower Arranger, and if you subscribe to both, which is your favourite. So let's start with the Flower Arranger. So this is available at large newsagents, but I think probably more commonly is sold through the flower club. So let's have a look what is in the magazine this month. So it's the spring edition. Here's a little cute DIY. It says it's a foam-free arrangement. So I'm guessing these are jam jars covered with silver birch bark, and I can see a tiny little bit of wire just fastening that birch in place, and then set on a wooden plank with a little plinth of the silver birch branches as well. So we've got grape hyacinths in the blue and the white, and we've got some little violas and pansies as well. And replicating your arrangement is always a great way of making everything look more impressive, more imposing. Garden pyramid there. Dates for your diary. An article here by Steph Adrianson. Now, I was going through my bookshelf yesterday. I'm clearing out my bookshelf one shelf at a time, and I've tracked down a book of his I bought when I was first trained to be a florist. These are dogwood stems here, looped round in a sort of teardrop shape, and then reversed to create a little bit of a stand at the bottom there. A sort of signature style. The nest form here, so that showing that we're moving into springtime, and lots of intricate wire work here. This looks like a thicker version of the aluminium wire, and the ends have been curled over like a sort of little staple end to provide support. And then there's a little bits of rolled wire that have been put on the uprights there, and then the flowers are set into test tubes. So quite a modern look. Yellows and blues, so we've got irises and tulips there, a classic springtime combination. There's some contorted hazel in there with the catkins. I can see some pussy willow there, and then that's arranged in a glass container. Looks like it's placed on a mirror, and I can see it's got the water retaining gel granules in there. It looks a little bit like frog spawn or marbles. So an item here, ongoing foam free with church flowers. It just goes to show you can be impressive without using flower foam. Now this item, I knew this was going to be in here because one of the ladies is in my free Facebook group, Flower Start World, pointed it out to me. It's a Himalayan wreath, and that's a wreath that we made in Zoom Flower class just before Christmas. So if you're interested in knowing how to make that, let me know in the comments, and I'll point you in the direction of the download from the shop pages of my website. I had trouble getting my wreath to stand upright, and I ended up fixing mine to a 12-inch single metal wreath frame. This, I know, there's 2 of them being made, so they've been back together, and I think probably that has given it a little bit of strength. So a little bit of leaf manipulation there, weaving with the leaves, a little bit of movement with the tulips, and this is a lovely idea. I've seen this before with the lilies, and they've been threaded together. So you've got the really open one at the bottom, and then they're getting smaller and smaller towards the top. Beautiful white hyacinths there, arranged on wood, and the beauty of hyacinths is they need to be sprayed to keep them moist, but they don't need to be set into a flower foam or something like that, so it can be quite freeing in terms of your design. So that's wood there and hyacinths. And here looks like there's plastic tubing here, coils of plastic tubing, and it's got freesia in there, eggs in there, craspedia, and it looks like the little Kermit style spray chrysanthemums. And as I look, I think this is a piece, let's have a look. It looks like felt, a deep piece of felt, but it does look a little bit like agri-wool, or the insulation that you get in your loft. And isn't this absolutely beautiful? You cannot go wrong with amassing a single flower and a single colour into a very simple vase. It looks beautiful. And then we've got the purple of the irises with a pin holder. So this is a classic pin holder arrangement with just a small amount of water, and then the pins in the bottom, and then you're impaling each of your iris flower stems onto those spikes. Barks and blooms, so have a look at that. And this is an arrangement here by Helen Hare, who belongs to one of my flower clubs. An item on judging there. Oh, this is good. This is Fleuramour. Fleuramour. Oh, look at this. This item's on Fleuramour. So if you haven't already seen it, I have got 2 videos on Fleuramour, and I will link both of those in the notes underneath this video. So I went on a trip with my flower club in September, and we went across to Belgium on a coach trip, and this is what we saw. It's so lovely. And of course, these are professional photographs, so much better than my own. I had my photograph taken in front of this display leading into the castle, and this was down the vault. And this, in fact, was one of my favourite rooms. And it's nice as well here because they've actually got the names of the arrangers. Yes, lots of familiar stuff there. So hellebores as well. So hellebores tend not to be cut from the plant. You can cut the heads really short and float them, and there's various tips and tricks for trying to get the heads to remain upright. So another yellow and whites there with the ranunculus and the daffodils, and some anemones there as well, it looks like. Spring at home. See, a wreath isn't just for Christmas, it can be all year round. Mother's Day floral hat box. Oh, this looks like an interesting material. It looks, oh gosh, what is that? Let me have a look. Wool flakes and washi paper. It's sort of giving it a fluffy little look to it. Star of the season. Talking about spring blossoms. Verdant displays in green. Tulips. I'm wondering here, I've got a piece of lead that I do this with and sort of scrunch it up, but I'm wondering whether those are actually some form of aspidistra leaf that have been wrapped around a container. It's giving it the same effect. And you can see those spring colours coming through, not only in the plant material, but also in those, it's either yellow or white, or it's white and that purple colour coming through. A little sort of enclosing handle almost to a basket, another silver birch slab, and then it looks like silver birch twigs bound into a visual handle, not a handle you could actually lift that up with. And then reporting on the flower festival at Lincoln Cathedral. Just to give you ideas if you're a church flower arranger, things you could be adapting or being inspired by. Are you a competitor? Do you like going to flower arranging competitions? So you may well need look for some pointers here. You be the judge and then see whether you and the judge agree. Advice on doing some planting in the garden. Things to see and places to go. So that is all rather lovely and deserves a much closer look. Now, if I am totally honest, I take my flower arranger through the flower club. I actually prefer Flora magazine. Let me know in the comments what your preference is. I just find the Flora magazine to be ever so slightly more informative. So let's have a look and see what you think. Winter Wonderland. There's a feature there on our weddings. Look at the ribbon trim there. And there's amazing stockings the bride is wearing. So Winter Wonderland. And yeah, if we get some snow, you may well find me trying to replicate this on a small scale. So putting the flowers direct into the snow, that looks like fun. Sitting Pretty, so a little arrangement there of grape hyacinths. And this is a new variety of ranunculus. Now I'm wondering whether I saw these at the Fleuramour in Belgium. We thought they were Lysianthus, a different variety of Lysianthus, so I'm not entirely sure whether I saw them or not. So asymmetry. So your flowers arrangements don't always need to be a mirror image of one side to the other. You can create interest by making them asymmetrical. Idea there for Valentine's Day. Alternative mechanics, so really everybody's coming more and more attuned to using less plastic, which means using less flower foam. So it's got 12 top tips there for alternative mechanics, one of which will be the pin holder or Kenzen or flower frog, it all name the same thing. And there's a handy item here on the agra wool, and also this is Terra Brick, which I think is more like a soil. So if you are in my free Facebook group, I did do a little bit of research on the differences between the alternative foam blocks. So it might be worthwhile having a look at that in more detail. And of course, flower frogs, you could create something yourself with air dry clay and punch holes out of it. Now this was an item I found very interesting. I've previously looked at this magazine about wall pockets, and it's been written by Pip Bensley. And the interesting facts I discovered was that many of these pieces are made by Silvac, who you may recognise that name, who make the lovely vases, which are very fashionable at the moment because of the vintage appeal. And she says that Silvac is spelt with a capital S and a capital C at the end. And lo and behold, I turned over one of the pieces I saw at the antiques shop I went to the other week, and she is exactly right. And having read this article about wall pockets, I then spotted a couple of wall pockets. So how amazing is that? So it's a little bit of history there. So plants in the workplace, we know that plants are very beneficial for cleaning the air. A little bit of a garden in springtime. Again, there's more blue hyacinths and the hellebores floating in the grass dish. Analysis of beauty, I've turned down this page as well. Hogarth. We talk a lot about in flower arranging the Hogarth curve, and it's a favourite, particularly in my flower club. And it's just a really interesting article about Hogarth and his line of beauty, this lazy S. And it talks about the Fibonacci scale as well. So it's a little bit of a mathematical reasoning and applying that to nature. So much of nature and maths goes hand in hand. A little thing about Easter Parade. And Lily of the Valley, Snowdrops, a little Easter nest there, designed by Trudy Easton, and glorious tulips. So these tulips the petals have been reflexed. So that means when you stroke the petal and you bend them out carefully at the side, and it just gives that much more open look. It really changes the shape of the flower. All these seem to have been reflexed. It was me doing this arrangement. I would have perhaps left some in their traditional form as well, so you had a little bit of a contrast. But it's got a quite handy reckoner here on the different styles of tulips, whether they be singles, doubles, fringed, a peony style, parrot tulips, French lily, or ice cream varieties. There are tulips there. A little bit of the green as well, the galax leaves. You can buy these from your florist, you can pre-order them. Sometimes though, when I see a design that asks for galax leaves, I use ivy leaves, as we have an awful lot of ivy in our garden. A feature on weddings there. Another simple idea it's about corralling your flower arrangements. Get yourself a tray, get yourself some jam jars, wrap the jam jars with twine or wool just to elevate the look, and then it's just a case of cut and plonk. But you'll notice that each vase has got a single flower, they haven't been intermixed. And these floating hyacinths, so these hyacinths have been pipped. So the hyacinth, I've got one stem here, they've been taken off the main stem, so that is a pip of hyacinth. It's then been wired up with a really fine rose wire, and then it's been placed into this container, and then the rose wire is just the right weight to hold up the flower head, and it looks like they're just floating above the container there. I would say this is really easy to do. You just need a steady hand and not to crush your flowers. And if you didn't want to use hyacinths, you could recreate the look using short lengths of gypsophilia or the baby's breath. Fashion and art, this is talking about a headscarf that was made by Gucci for Grace Kelly. Orchids, I'm not a particular fan of orchids, but perhaps you are. The Lincoln Cathedral Flower Festival. And an arrangement there with bark attached to the outside of a container. Well, that's left me with plenty to think about, mull over and go back. And what I try to do these days is when I find an article that interests me, instead of just turning down the page, I actually put a post-it note and then mark on the post-it note what it was that interested me about that article. And it just means I can see straight away whether I want to go back to the magazine at another time. Sometimes I rip the pages out and then I will pass them on to the charity shop. And if you've got a friend who's interested in taking out a subscription to the Flower Arranger and Flora and doesn't know which magazine to choose, why don't you forward on the video and they can have a look for themselves and see which magazine appeals to them. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.